across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's talk to Natasha Hausdorff about this. She's a barrister. She's legal director at UK Lawyers for Israel. Natasha, I didn't think Hamas could sink to any lower depths than they've already done. But, yeah, they managed it. What did you make of this?
I can't say that I'm surprised, Julia, but that's because, like many others, I've certainly followed Hamas, their atrocities against their own people and against Israelis, and the information that we've been having in dribs and drabs coming out of those who've been released, who've been rescued from Hamas captivity. Those stories ultimately have been emerging over time as those recovered hostages have had the opportunity to become comfortable perhaps with giving that testimony. But you're absolutely right. Eli Sharabi lost his wife and daughters, the three of them British citizens, on the 7th of October. And I think we cannot overlook the brutal treatment of so many of the hostages and the fact that so many have been murdered in Hamas captivity. Every one that Israel is able to recover should, of course, be celebrated. But the very tragic circumstances and the state of these hostages coming out is a reflection of the way that they have been tortured.
It was quite something. But again and again, we've had the people, who march on a Saturday every other week in London defending what basically is a terrorist organisation. They claim they're for the Palestinian people. They're just defending Hamas in reality. They've been saying, especially the 4 young women who released, former soldiers, they look pretty healthy. Well, one of them's quite overweight. She must be fine. We know that those women were systematically starved, given, a pita bread a day for months and months on end, and then basically fattened up near the end so they appeared okay when they left. They didn't bother with these 4 men. They left in the most incredible emaciated state. We think, long-term damage, one barely able to walk. And it wasn't just Eli Sharabi who found out about losing his wife and children. Apparently he asked, where are my wife and daughters? Why aren't they here? And the news had to be broken to him just moments after he was forced to say he was looking forward to see them by these evil, sadistic torturers. But there was also Or Levy. He didn't know for sure if his wife was dead or alive. Einav was his wife. But he did get to see his son for the very first time. His son is now 3 years old, this little Almog. His dad, so he's lost his mum. His dad had been taken captive for 16 months. And his little boy said to him, you've been away a long time. Yeah. I mean, it just utterly heartbreaking. The third man was welcomed back by his wife and family. It is absolutely harrowing to watch this. And yet again, these disgusting displays, with everyone with their guns and their balaclavas and a big, a big sign, and they sort of legitimising it by having the International Red Cross, sign these documents, and yet so few of the human rights agencies, the ones who seem to care about the crimes against humanity, they seem remarkably unbothered about the state of these men. Clearly, they've been starved and beaten and tortured.
Well, you raise a very important point. The International Committee of the Red Cross abjectly failed in every responsibility they had to these hostages. They refused even to attempt to convey medication. And here we have seen, week after week, the Red Cross members engaged in this utter farce, this circus that you have described, I would argue in breach of their fundamental principles, their founding principles of neutrality, to engage in handshaking with members of this barbaric, internationally prescribed...
Signing certificates of departure.
Signing Mickey Mouse documents. There's no business that the International Committee of the Red Cross has to be signing anything with this internationally prescribed terrorist organisation. The brokers of this agreement, those that have been involved, other states like Egypt, Qatar, could easily have facilitated these exchanges. But of course, Hamas is using both the release of hundreds of prisoners, many of them with blood on their hands, as well as this circus of these releases week after week, to entrench its PR propaganda machine and to seek to engage in the kind of discourse that lends it credibility and international legitimacy. And it's not just Al Jazeera that is playing along with this game. Unfortunately, we see this kind of appalling equivalence being drawn, this sort of both sides logic being applied also by the BBC.
We're concerned about the condition of these people, but also of the prisoners. As if it's the same thing.
Laura Kuenssberg's interview with the President of Israel was utterly shameful, where she sought to draw those sorts of parallels and comparisons. He was having none of it, and President Herzog answered very flatly that this was entirely false. But it is part and parcel of the propaganda machine that we have seen spring into action when Hamas saw the world's understandable utter disgust at the condition in which these three Israeli men were released. They started very quickly to put out false messaging about supposed prisoners that had been released and mistreated in Israeli prisons, and that false information is unfortunately being picked up by the media.
Oh, I've been sent hundreds of people sending me a picture of one prisoner who'd been released. I get question marks about whether he had actually been on this release list, but he was a man who's known to have, he's being treated for cancer, which is the reason they go, well, this man's just as gaunt and emaciated. No, that's because he's being treated for cancer in an Israeli hospital.
So unfortunately, the misinformation that feeds into that kind of both sides false logic persists, and this will undoubtedly have devastating consequences for the future. It simply encourages Hamas to continue to attempt to kidnap Israelis in future and to return pretty swiftly to their terrorist activities.
I mean, there's a big question mark now. The second phase negotiations have started for that. We've still got dozens of hostages still being held captive who believed to still be alive. We're still hoping against hope that the baby and toddler, the Bibas family, are still alive. And again, hope is dwindling there. But also the urgency now of getting those hostages out, knowing what state many of them are being kept in. And we know a lot of the information about how people are being kept is being kept under wraps for fear of upsetting families, for fear of doing anything to stop any more releases. But I think in the fullness of time, the horror will be emerging. And I know the same people who've defended October the 7th again and again and gone these marches will still, for some reason, find reasons to claim it's not real, it didn't happen, or, well, they're both as bad as each other. And it is utterly abhorrent that this is happening. Natasha Hausdorff, thank you so much for joining us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.